Hey guys, it's Jen. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite blushes, bronzers, and highlighters for 2019. So this is the second favorites video in the series. If you missed my one on complexion products with foundation, concealers, primers, and all that good stuff, definitely check that out. I'm going to link it up here and also at the end of the video. I'm just going to put together a playlist of all of my 2019 year-end favorites. And just like the last one, I'm going to include drugstore and high-end versions. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's start out with blushes first. And some of these are old favorites while other ones are new products that I discovered this year. So throughout this video you're going to see a mix of both old and new products, but basically I'm just talking about products that I reached for the most in 2019. So starting with drugstore or more affordable powder blushes, I would say probably still my favorite are these Flower Beauty Flower Pots blushes. These are the ones that I reach for time and time again when I'm going to use a powder blush because of the formula. I just think it is one of the silkiest blushes out there on the market. It just blends so nicely on the skin and it doesn't grab to certain areas. It just like looks flawless on your cheeks. For a powder blush especially, it really looks like it's coming from within rather than sitting on top. So I absolutely love the formula of these. I also really love the colors. I would say if I had to choose a favorite shade that I reach for the most often, it would probably be Warm Hibiscus. This is the only one that has a little bit of a sheen to it. The other ones are more of a flat matte. The other ones are beautiful, but this one is just like that perfect peachy pink with a little hint of gold shimmer, but it's not enough to draw attention to pores on your cheeks or texture. So it's kind of, I would say, a close dupe for NARS Orgasm. It's really similar to that, but I don't find this to be as sparkly, and it's a little bit more smooth on the cheeks. Another affordable powder blush that I really have been loving again this year are these ColourPop pressed powder blushes. I hardly hear anybody talk about these, but they're such a great formula and the colors are beautiful. They have so many different options to choose from. You can either get them in this little case. I think it costs an extra $1 or $2 if you want the actual compact, or you can just buy the pans and put them in your own custom palette. I've actually done that as well and created a blush palette for myself, but I also have a bunch of these singles as well. I think the formula is great. It reminds me a lot of the one from the Balm, if you've tried the Balm's powder blushes, and you're going to hear about those in just a second. These are very similar to those at a more affordable price, and the formula on these is great too. They're very pigmented, but at the same time very easy to blend out. If I had to pick one shade that's my favorite, it would probably be To the 10. This one is a matte finish, and it's like the most perfect peachy pink nude color. I reach for this one probably the most out of all of them. Okay, so moving on to high-end powder blushes, my favorite formula is definitely the Lorac Color Source blushes. I don't hear a lot of people talking about these also, and I have no idea why, because the formula is so good. Very similar to the Flower Beauty ones. These are so finely milled that they just are so silky and they glide across the cheeks effortlessly, and they almost kind of become one with your skin, which is really nice for a powder blush because again, you don't feel like it's powdery and it's sitting on top. It kind of like melts in. It looks like you're glowing from within, which I really love about these. They are very pigmented though, so a little bit goes a long way. These are called buildable blushes, but I don't find them buildable at all. I think they're very pigmented, so you have to use them sparingly. But my favorite shade of the bunch is probably Tinge. This one I reach for almost more than any other blush in my collection because it literally goes with everything. If you look at it in the pan, it looks very pale, but actually on my skin tone, it's like the perfect nude blush. So no matter what lip color or eye color I'm wearing, it goes with it all. And I especially reach for this when I'm wearing more colorful eyeshadow looks because it's just very neutral. It's not going to clash with anything. So sometimes when it's hard to decide whether you should wear like a peachy blush or a cooler tone pink, if you just grab for something like this, it kind of goes with everything because it's so neutral. And then when it comes to high-end powder blushes, definitely these ones from the Balm are also at the top of my list. I love the shades that they come up with. I love the packaging. I think they're so cute and adorable and kind of retro looking. And the formula is great too. They're very similar actually to the ColourPop ones in that they're really pigmented but easy to blend on the cheeks. But mainly I just think these colors are so flattering. I would say my favorite one is probably Frat Boy. This one is kind of more of like a peachy pink. It has a little bit of coral to it almost. It's actually a brighter color that is perfect going into the spring and summer. I find myself reaching for this a lot when the weather warms up just because it's like such a happy color. I don't know why. Okay, let's move on to cream blushes, and I feel like 2019 was definitely the year of cream blushes for me. I really got into them a lot more than I've been in the past, and I don't know if it's because I have dry skin or because I'm getting older. Cream formulas can be very flattering on both dry skin and more mature skin types. So let's start out with the more affordable cream products. And I would say my favorites are probably from ColourPop, both the Super Shock Cheeks and also these blush sticks right here. So Super Shock Cheeks, these I've been using since they launched them many years ago, and I always usually throw one of these in my cart if I'm placing a ColourPop order because they dry out, I would say, in about 6 months with regular use. So you do have to keep repurchasing them. But I just love the soft moussey texture. I usually just apply them with my fingers. You can use a brush, but I find that using fingers to apply cream blushes is the best way because it doesn't disturb the foundation underneath as much. If you're rubbing at something with a brush, it's definitely going to take that layer of foundation off. So I like to just tap my fingers in something like this and pat it, not rub it, but just kind of pat it in. And the warmth from your fingers should help to just melt it and make it look the way you want. And then these blush sticks are also really nice. The formula is similar. I feel like these are a little bit more firm and not as moussey as the Super Shock Cheeks, but they're very similar in that both dry down to more of a powdery finish, so neither one is going to feel sticky or tacky on your cheeks. These are just kind of more in like a portable format, but I basically do the same thing. You can either draw it on your cheeks and then pat it with your fingers, or I just sometimes swirl it on my fingers like that and then pat it in. So you kind of have a couple different options to play with, but I really enjoy these. I took them on vacation with me a lot just because it's so easy to travel with these little sticks. So let me go ahead and show you swatches of the shades that I have. And then on the high-end side, my favorite cream blush, and you guys have heard me talk about these now in several videos, these are the Doll 10 Hydrogel Cream Balms. These are amazing. These are actually probably, out of all the cream products I have, the ones that I've been reaching for the most lately ever since I discovered them, because the formula is unlike anything else that I've tried in the way of cream products. At first, it just feels like a regular cream product, but then when you go to put it on your skin, it's almost completely weightless. It just immediately dries to a powdery finish, and it's just so like seamless and easy to blend, and it just kind of like melds into the skin, becomes one with the skin, and it really just looks like you're blushing from within. It looks really, really natural. So I would say my favorite color is probably Kiss on the Chic. It's just the most beautiful pink nude for fair to light skin tones. Actually, I forgot to mention my favorites in the other ones, the ColourPop. My favorite is Between the Sheets. This one is also like a pinky nude. It's like the perfect color for my skin tone. With the sticks, I really like the color Dash Zero. This is more of a peachy nude. It's a little bit warmer, but it's really, really beautiful. And also when it comes to high-end cream blushes, one brand that I discovered this year was Nude Sticks. I really hadn't tried them before, but one of my viewers, Susan, had recommended them to me. I knew about them, I just never pulled the trigger. So I ended up getting a couple of these Nudies cheek sticks. They're all over face color, actually. So I think some of them are bronzers, some of them are blushes. I think they also make highlighter versions, but I have Bareback and In the Nude, and then I also have this little mini one in the shade Sunkissed. And what I love about these, actually I feel like they're very similar to the ColourPop ones. So if you don't want to spend the money on the nude sticks, I feel like the ColourPop are very comparable. They're very long lasting on your cheeks. They feel creamy initially and they're very easy to blend in. They give you a little bit of time before they completely set. But once they set, they don't budge and they don't have that sticky or tacky feel on your cheeks all day like some cream blushes can have. So that's one reason I really like both of these formulas a lot. And it does come down to personal preference. I know some people probably enjoy having that kind of dewy, glowy look, but usually I find more matte formulas to be longer lasting. They don't slide around. And my favorite shade in this line is probably the Bareback shade. This is a really beautiful, cool toned nude shade, which is very hard to find. Most of the time I feel like nude shades are more on the warm side. So this one is very, I would say, cool toned to neutral. It's honestly just the most beautiful color. I'm going to show you swatches of all three in a second, but it's just something that is really not easy to find in a nude blush. And it's possible that ColourPop does make a similar shade, but it's sometimes hard to choose shades on their website because you can't see them in person. So I actually saw this in store and swatched it and knew I had to have it. But it's not to say that there isn't maybe a similar shade in the ColourPop line. There could be, but just the uniqueness of this shade is what made me want to pay the extra money for the nude sticks. I also want to mention that they have a brush on the other side, but I feel like the bristles are like too short and it's too dense, and when you go to blend it out with the brush, it just moves your foundation, and I feel like it almost blends the product away. So I don't recommend using the brush that comes with these. I usually just pat them in with my fingers like the rest of them. Also, when I was talking about the affordable blushes, I forgot to mention these Revlon cheek flushing tints. These I discovered over the summer this year and really enjoyed them. I wore them a ton. These aren't really a cream blush as much as they are like a gel blush or like a stain. They remind me a lot of the old Bonnie Bell gel blushes. If you guys remember from back in the 80s and 90s, I used to use that all the time, the one that came in the little tube. These have a wand, so the packaging is a little bit different, but the concept is the same. You have to work really quickly. Once you dot them on your cheeks, you just have to blend really fast. But because they're a liquid, they kind of go deep into your skin and they just stay there all day. So they're not sitting on top like a cream blush would. So I would say these are more long lasting than anything I talked about today. And another thing I love about them is because they dry down so completely, you can layer a powder blush on top of them and then really extend the staying power. So I just wanted to mention those two as well. So next up, let's talk bronzers. I have 4 to share with you, 2 that are drugstore and 2 that are high end. So first, on the affordable side, we have the Milani Silky Matte Bronzer in the shade 02 Sunkissed. This one's probably my favorite bronzer out of all the ones that I'm going to talk about today, just because the formula is beautiful. It's so silky, just like the name says, and I love this color as well. It's like the perfect neutral bronzer. It leans maybe like slightly cool, but because I have a pink undertone in my skin, usually those orangey or really warm bronzers don't look good on me, so I'm usually looking for a color exactly like this. They do have a lighter shade, and normally I am the lightest shade in a bronzer, but I went up to the second shade because the lightest one is a little bit more warm toned. So this one was definitely a favorite this year and probably the one I reached for the most. Another one that I really love is the Flower Beauty Heat Wave Luminous Bronzer. Now this one, even though it says it's a luminous bronzer, it's not actually that luminous. It's very subtle, but it has a little bit of luminosity running through it. It is a baked formula, so it's kind of similar to like an Hourglass ambient powder, where you're not going to see like a lot of glitter or sparkle on your cheeks. It just gives your skin a nice glow. I actually use this as a blush too because it has a slightly like rosy tone to it, but I just love the formula of this. I think baked products are really great if you have dry skin or more mature skin because just they're so finely milled and they look so natural on your cheeks. So then when it comes to high-end bronzers, one of my favorites is definitely from The Balm. It's their Take Home the Bronze in the shade Oliver. This one is also more of a true neutral bronzer. It's not too warm, it's not too cool like a contour powder. It's really just the perfect color. This is the lightest one in their collection, but they do have 2 deeper versions as well, and they're all supposed to be anti-orange. So if you don't like that really super warm bronze look, definitely check out this line, even if you have a deeper skin tone than me. Like I said, they do have 2 deeper ones, and you can get these at a way more affordable price if you wait for the Balm's 50% off sale, because they do have that several times a year. That's when I got this, and it was like the same price as a drugstore one. So I definitely recommend checking this one out. I'm actually gonna swatch all of these together at the end so you can kind of see how they compare. And then last but not least, we have the Marc Jacobs Tantastic Omega Bronzer. And this one is very similar in color to the Milani one and also to the one from The Balm. But I splurged on this one before I even had the Milani one. It's just I got that after the fact and realized like, oh man, they're so similar. But I did still find a purpose for this. So this one I actually use all over my body in the summer as a body bronzer. Because it's so huge and there's so much product in here, it really goes a long way. So I usually take a giant fluffy brush like this one right here. This one's from Dior. It's really old. And what I do is I just swirl this around and I put this on, you know, my chest area, my arms, my legs, and it really just gives my skin a sun-kissed glow when I'm wearing shorts and tank tops and stuff. And I do this because I don't like self-tanner. I cannot get the hang of it. I feel like it grabs. Maybe it's because I have dry skin, but it just grabs to my knees, my ankles, my feet, my hands. Everything just looks kind of funky and streaky if I use self-tanner. And the same goes for self-tanning lotions that wash off at the end of the day. I still feel like they grab to all those dry areas, even if I put a lotion on beforehand, but a powder is way less likely to do that. So it's just something temporary that, you know, washes off at the end of the night. But I really find that it just gives a little bit of subtle glow without going overboard, and it makes my fair skin just look not quite so washed out. Alright, so now let's move on to highlighter. Definitely my least favorite topic when it comes to makeup these days because I really don't wear highlighter all that much, but I still want to show you my favorites just in case you do happen to wear highlighter and you have some of the same preferences as I do. So first I'm going to show you 2 of my favorite subtle highlighters, and the first one at a drugstore price is the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. I know I've talked about this over the years, but it really just is the perfect subtle highlight if you don't like highlighters. So once in a while I'll use this if my skin skin is just looking really dry and dull, and I'll just kind of top my blush with this a little bit, and without adding sparkle or glitter, it just really makes my skin look a little bit more luminous. It's actually very similar to the Hourglass powders. I feel like it has the same kind of effect, so it's not going to look like a stripe of highlight on your cheeks. And on the high end, my favorite is the Laura Geller French Vanilla highlighter. This one is actually getting harder and harder to get these days because Ulta doesn't carry Laura Geller anymore. I believe you can still get it on QVC or on her website, but I'm not really sure about stores anymore. This is the exact same thing, basically. They are really, really close as far as the texture goes and the effect that they give, but French Vanilla is just a little bit lighter. So if you feel like this Essence one might be a little too dark for you, try this one out because it definitely has more of like a brightening effect. I find that I can use this even though it looks a little bit dark in the pan. Once I put it on my cheeks, I feel like it just blends in seamlessly with my skin tone. It's kind of magical in that way, but this one definitely adds like an element of brightness to it because it is a lot lighter. It's also yellow toned, so I feel like it kind of color corrects just a little bit. But if you like a more bold or bright highlight, I definitely recommend on the drugstore side this Flower Beauty Shimmer and Strobe palette. This one I've had for a couple of years now, but I just find this highlighter formula to be superior to anything else at the drugstore. In fact, I find that it's superior to a lot of high-end highlighters as well. I think it's similar to like Becca's formula, but I think I like this even more because Becca's formula can be a little chunky and a little bit like crumbly. These are just so smooth and so like seamless and weightless for a powder. They're just super finely milled and they really add like that crazy, crazy glow to your cheeks. So if you like an intense highlight, I definitely recommend checking these out. And on the high end side, my favorite highlighter is the Lorac Light Source. Again, these are not ones that are talked about too frequently, but just like the Color Source blushes, I find that the formula of these is really, really fantastic. It's similar to the Flower Beauty ones in that it's so smooth. It is going to be a really intense highlight though, so you have to be like okay with that. That's why I don't really wear these all that often. I used to when I was into highlighter, but these days I just find like they're a little bit too much for me. But if you are still in that highlighter mode, I think the formula of these is absolutely fantastic. And then last but not least, I have a couple of cream highlighters to share with you, and just like with the blushes, I find that cream highlights usually work really well on dry or more mature skin. So first, on the more subtle side, I've really been liking this L'Oreal True Match Glotion. This is more of a liquid highlighter, so you can use this as a primer and then put your foundation on top. You can mix it with foundation, or you can just take a few drops and put it on your cheekbones, and it's just very, very subtle. It adds a little bit of sheen without being overly glittery or crazy. And on the high end side, I've really been enjoying the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. So I actually did a comparison of these in a video a while back. I can't remember what video it was, but I was saying in the video that I felt like these were dupes for each other. But then when I put this on one cheek and this one on the other, a bunch of you guys were saying that the Charlotte Tilbury one actually looked better. So, and then when I watched the video back, I felt the same way. I just think this one shows up a little bit more. In person, you can definitely still see this one, but on camera, I just felt like you could see this one a little bit more. So that's something, again, that's personal preference because you might actually like the subtlety of the L'Oreal one. But I basically use this the exact same way. It's a liquid, so you can put it all over your face. You can mix it in with foundation. I usually just take a couple drops like when my skin is looking kind of more dull or dry and just pat it on my cheekbones, sometimes like a little dot on my nose or my Cupid's bow. And I find that it just gives my skin like that glow where you don't really notice it unless it catches the light a little bit. So really, really enjoy those as very subtle highlighters. But if you want something a little bit more intense, I find that the ColourPop light sticks are actually a really good option. I got this one when I purchased a kit with the Flutterby collection, and I wanted to try one of the blush sticks. I thought it was so pretty, and it came in a set with this. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have purchased this on its own because I really don't wear highlighter that much, but I was so blown away by the formula of this and how smooth it is. So again, it is a little bit more of like an intense highlight. You're definitely gonna see it, but it's not glittery, it's not chunky, and I find that it just kind of melts into the skin. So this one that I have is in the shade Magpie, and I think it's just beautiful. It has a little bit of a duochrome effect to it. It's kind of like a peachy golden shade. It's just really pretty. And then on the high end side, I really love these Hourglass Vanish highlighting sticks. This is in the shade Champagne Flash. This one again is very, very intense. intense, but it is so smooth and so seamless when you put it on your skin. But it is very, very shiny and intense again, so if you're not crazy about that, you may not enjoy this, and you might want to go for just something more like the Charlotte Tilbury. But even though I don't like highlighters, I can say that this, and actually the ColourPop one too, they're very flattering even if you have a little bit more texture on your face. Because they're so smooth, they tend to work out a little bit more. Alright guys, so those are my 2019 favorites when it comes to cheeks. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe found some new products to try. And if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, let me know in the comments down below if any of your favorites are the same as my favorites, or if you have different ones that you want me to check out. I'm always willing to try new stuff, and I always love hearing your suggestions. So thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you go, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!